Soviet disk detected. To play the Allied missions, please insert the Allied disk.
Hello everyone, I'm a Broken Robot. If you've been a long-time viewer of the show, you'll know that I personally like a diverse range of video game genres and styles, anything from pixelated run-and-guns to deep story-driven titles. One of my all-time favorite genres is that of the survival crafting gaming genre, that flourished with the explosion of Minecraft in the early 2010s, and sadly has slowly but steadily fizzled out into the background of gaming circles in recent years. Titles we've covered here on the show like 7 Days to Die, Darkwood, and even Rust all fall within the genre of survival crafting, but have one vital difference between the title I'd like to discuss today. While in most survival crafting titles there is an overarching end goal like defeating the Ender Dragon in Minecraft, or escaping the alien planet in Subnautica, or saving your child in Sons of the Forest, The Long Dark takes a radically different approach, with the only goal being to survive for as long as possible in a frozen, isolated region of the Canadian wilderness. Unlike similar titles like 7 Days to Die or Palworld that has an in-game universe full of monsters and zombies and other in-game enemies, The Long Dark is as real as a video game can get, with the developers themselves having to implement warnings that the game doesn't count as real wilderness survival training. The Long Dark, created by the Ace Indie development team at Hinterland Studio based out of Vancouver, Canada, wanted to create a survival crafting title that was based in reality, openly boasting that their title doesn't have any zombies or killer robots stalking the player character. It's truly just you, the cold, and whatever Mother Nature throws your way. While future updates did introduce a scripted story-based campaign that takes you through parts of the game's world, The Long Dark truly shines brightest when playing the survival game mode. The game hosts a picturesque art style, with everything looking like it's coming straight out of a painting. The sunrises and late-night stares into the sky show a well-developed world with everything from the trees, buildings, and even the very piles of snow itself, all looking like it's straight out of a picture book. Additionally, while a minor detail, The Long Dark does host a soft but cunning ambient soundtrack that knows when to increase the awe of a moment, make a suspenseful chase all the more frightful, and never overstays its welcome, leaving long spans of it just being quiet, being you alone with the sounds of the surrounding nature. In terms of story, The Long Dark is a master of leaving a lot of gaps for the player's own imagination to fill, combined with the developers sprinkling just enough environmental storytelling and notes left behind for each playthrough to feel truly unique and different. Every playthrough begins with a message claiming that a geomagnetic storm has permanently changed the climate of the Earth. From other notes revealed in pause menus, the player can learn that economic recessions in North America and Europe had left most of Canada in poverty prior to the geomagnetic storm, and other notes littered around the game shows that most people attempted to flee or died trying, as even when winter turned to spring, the cold never ended, and an endless winter has seemingly engulfed the majority of the northern hemisphere. You as the player character are an unnamed man or woman who has wandered into the area, or are one of the few remaining surviving humans in the region, left to pick off the remains of the surrounding areas. No matter which region you choose to spawn in, there are dozens of starting spawn zones, combined with having the possibility to spawn during any point of the daylight cycle, or even during snowfall or a blizzard. While some online have criticized The Long Dark for its lack of narrative structure, notes left behind paint a bleak but satisfying story of the surrounding region and those that once lived in the now frozen wasteland. During the rare occasions that solar radiation is hitting the Earth, electrical devices have the ability to partially work, and even some computers still have notes and unsent emails left behind for the players to look over. These notes and mementos help flesh out the world. It's not just an old abandoned farmhouse, it was an elderly man's last stand against the cold after his wife died in a wolf attack. It's not just an empty camp office, it was once the prized family business of two sisters, who were left to survive in it after the collapse. It's not just an old abandoned car, it belonged to a family that was desperately trying to escape the endless winter. It doesn't matter which region of the map you visit. Despite the boarded up buildings and long stretches of barren wilderness, these were places once connected to real people who have either died or were forced to leave everything behind. In fact, Now's a good time to discuss the various regions that you'll encounter in the in-game world. No matter which region you venture into, they'll all have their own pros and cons. Regions like Mystery Lake, Coastal Highway, and Mountain Town have a lot of man-made structures to search through and scavenge, but are also a hub for hostile wildlife. More difficult regions like Timberwolf Mountain, Forlong Muskeg, and Hushed River Valley are lacking in man-made shelters and are often inhabited by larger predators like bears. They also host the majority of the natural resources like deer to hunt, berries and cattails to pick, and coal and rocks to harvest from the mines and caves attached to these regions. Some of the hardest regions like Black Rock, Desolation Point, and Ash Canyon are isolated from the majority of the map, and more than often are devoid of any resources like man-made shelters. They often have the best loot and crafting tables available on the map, but it's quite a risk versus reward scenario. I could spend an entire video going over each and every region's pros and cons, but the main takeaway is that even outside picking which location to visit, everything in the game has a pro and a con. Moving into the actual gameplay of The Long Dark is a game that takes realism to a serious degree. You as the player must constantly monitor and maintain your temperature, energy, water intake, and your food intake. Everything you do, from chopping firewood, taking a stroll down to the fishing hole, or even staying inside during a snowstorm to read a book, provides a pro and a con. In my own playthrough experience, I found that the best strategy in survival mode is to plan out each and every day to a T. That way you don't waste any time or resources. Everything you do is taking away from something else. If you're spending your time breaking down furniture for firewood, you're not getting food and water. If you're out scavenging for better tools and supplies, you aren't preparing your shelter for the coming night. If you spend all day inside reading survival books, you're not finding more fuel for your fireplace. If you're only living off processed foods in the early game, you'll be forced to hunt for food in the following weeks. I could go on, but the main takeaway is that even the most experienced and well-prepared players can find themselves dead after one or even two wrong moves. There is no one correct way to play survival mode. Some players will stockpile loot in one location, while others prefer to stay nomadic and constantly on the move from region to region. The Long Dark is a game that values being a jack of all trades, since if you focus too much on one thing, eventually it will catch up to you in a deadly way. While out traveling in the frozen wilderness, you'll encounter long-dead frozen corpses, abandoned cabins and forgotten homes to loot, and wolves and bears more than happy to make you their next meal. When it comes to the hostile wildlife you'll encounter in the Long Dark, bears are the most deadly and can one-shot even the most experienced and well-prepared players. They are slow and easy to lose if you stay on your toes and keep your distance. It's vital to not have any raw or cooked meat on you, as the scent can be a dead giveaway. Even if you're traveling light and in a stealthy manner, wolves and timber wolves will be your biggest challenge. Unlike bears, wolves can catch your scent from much further, and without you carrying any scented items. Additionally, they tend to travel in numbers and will actively communicate to one another. Wolves also move much faster than the player, and if you're over-encumbered or too cold, they'll quickly catch up to a fleeing player. As you survive longer and longer in the Long Dark, it's vital to be constantly upgrading your equipment, whether it's clothing for warmth, tools like knives, hammers, or hatchets for breaking down furniture for firewood and raw materials, or weapons for defense like rifles, bow and arrow, or even a rock if you're desperate enough. Another vital aspect is to be always collecting fuel for your fireplace, or just fire-starting materials in general. If you've survived the first crucial days, you've likely picked a structure, building, or even a cave as your base of operation, but no matter where you go, you'll always need a fire to survive the night. In my own experience, to conserve weight, I'd leave my fire-starting materials at my base, only to find myself stranded in a fishing hut without a match. The same could be said for food and water. It's best to be constantly keeping a steady supply, or you'll quickly be weighed down by debuffs if you're not flush with medical supplies or top-of-the-line equipment. Overall, The Long Dark is a game that requires conscious decision-making, resource management, and a little bit of patience and time management. Whether you're a casual player looking to check out a frozen take on the survival crafting genre, or a longtime fan of realistic survival games, each and every player develops their own playstyle in The Long Dark, based on what they value, and what they want to do most. And while you can defy the odds and outlive the majority of players, All games end the same, with the player entering the long dark. Even if you manage to scavenge every house on the map, every inch of the in-game world, as time goes on, things will get harder and resources will dry up, adding an almost bleak, looming feeling of hopelessness that makes each day survived feel all the more triumphant. Even if you tried the long dark in the past and felt that it wasn't for you, I highly encourage each and every one of you to check out the long dark, as its developers have released a steady stream of updates and even a full-fledged DLC called Tales from the Far Territory, adding potentially hundreds of hours of gameplay. And with that being said, that's the Long Dark, a unique take on a once overdone genre of gaming. But what do you guys think? Have you played the Long Dark before, or do you know any other games that seem similar? I'd be more than happy to discuss in the comments down below. But more than anything, I'm so thankful to have each and every one of you in my audience today. You guys are truly what makes the show possible, and I hope that you guys were entertained by my video and maybe even learned something new. If you like what you see, feel free to hit the like button. That way I know you guys want more videos, and it would personally help me out in the YouTube algorithm, so hey, thanks a bunch. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Robot Factory today. We cover everything on the Broken Robot Show, from gaming, pop culture, and even biographies and interesting stories. We also have new segments coming out soon, so stay tuned. I hope you all have a great day, don't drink non-potable water, and stay cool.